Welcome to the Stand-Up Speakeasy. I am Sareth, and my goal for this series was to go on tour in the Central Time Zone and interview comics in the Central Time Zone, but I probably would have had like 10 to 20 minutes with them. But I'm glad COVID hit and I get to spend more time with them and interview them and find out their background and ask them the same questions I would have asked them if I were to go on tour. And they get to nominate my future guests. So this is a pretty cool way to interview comics without leaving my home. So without further ado, I'm interviewing someone from Louisiana that my pal Robert Allen Hall had requested. So ladies and gentlemen, Jason Leonard. Hey Jason, how are you, pal?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being on the show. It means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
Cool. So I visited your website and you sent me the links and everything like that, and then I was like, blown away by all the stuff that you put together, and our mutual friend Robert spoke really highly of you during his interview. So, how do you know Robert?
I'm in Lafayette, Louisiana, and he's in Baton Rouge. He was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he is a goofy little cornball. And right away, I was like, yeah, I like this dude. So we started kind of hanging out and doing shows together. And I would have him on my shows, and I would go do whatever shows he was doing in Baton Rouge, and then that's it. It just became what it was, and then he moved away, and I was disappointed.
Indeed, it happens for sure. And yeah, it's pretty neat though. Like like how everyone builds each other up with their shows. That's what I found out about the comics that I've seen here too. So it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the only way to get things rolling is to support. If not, then you just dependent on the luck of word of mouth.
Absolutely, indeed. And so, you worked with a lot of huge names I seen on your bio. You hosted or you featured for Tom Segura, Doug Stanhope, Todd Berry, Kyle Kinane, Brian Hussein, Emo Phillips, Joe DeRosa, Shane Moss, Brooks Wheelan, Baron Vaughn, Nate Bargatze, Sashir Zamata, Mike Lawrence, Dan St. Germain, Ben Kronberg, Mike Kaplan, I believe, Kevin Farley, and more. Like, what were some of those stories? We'll break down each name if you'd like to.
Let's go name by name. No, so I guess the way it started is how I got into comedy. I played music for like 14 years, and then I was playing at a bar, and I was helping them kind of book bands. And I had kind of was fading out of music, and I met someone from New Orleans who ran a comedy scene, and we were talking, and it's like, if you ever want comedy, let me know. So I asked the owner, and he's like, yeah. So we did it like a monthly show on a Wednesday. I didn't even go for the first couple months because I had band practice. And then one night they were like, hey, we're gonna do an open mic, and then I did it. And then I was like, if it works, I'm gonna keep doing it. And then that was it. But I've been a stand-up fan since I was a kid. I mean, my parents luckily didn't put any filters, so I was watching Richard Pryor at age 5 and 6 and whatever. So once I started doing that, then I was like, hey, I can do these shows more often because bands are not working. And then once I get the bug on something, I just go to town. And so I knew right away that, hey, and here in Lafayette, if I want to see a show, I have to drive 2.5 hours to New Orleans or 3.5 to Houston. So I said, there's a better way. I can start booking people. And then the first comedian I ever booked was Tom Segura. And, we sold out. And this was right before he blew up on Netflix and everything. And then that started it. And then that's just how. So it's just like it's another market. You just got to prove yourself. And then next thing you know, we started getting tons of people wanting to come here. And and here we are. It's really great. I mean, I've got to, do shows with some of my favorite comedians and legends, and hang out with people and stay in a car for 3 hours, on the road with them, just bringing them to another show to go do that show. It's kind of amazing, when you're eating Whataburger with Emo Phillips at 2 a.m, it's kind of, all right, this is kind of cool. So, yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah, Tom Segura has a great podcast, and Emo Phillips is a pretty unique character on stage.
Yeah,
absolutely. And You also worked with Doug Stanhope, and I've seen him a couple times in Daytona. What was that like?
Man, he's great. So they're kind of, kind of intimidating because he's at a point where he doesn't take any bull crap. And so, just like, hey, here's my room. This is what it is. Let's go. And the first time I had him here, because he had played Lafayette years, like a good 10 years before he even came back here, because there was a small comedy scene. And then just a venue booked him. So we set up a show, and him and Brendan Walsh, who's amazing. And it was just, boom, we had a sold out show, and it was one of the rowdiest, scariest crowds I've ever got up in front of. But it was amazing. So yeah, and we had him about a year and a half ago, and he's a great dude, and he brings great comedians with him.
Most definitely, and it's inspiring how like he's still a DIY comic, and he still books his shows with Charlie and stuff like that. So
yeah.
It's pretty neat for sure. And what was it like working with Todd Barry?
Oh man, okay, so little known secret, very few people know this, but I've not booked Todd Barry a few times because I've never had a place where that has a green room, because he's famous for griping about green rooms. And if you read his book, that's his whole tour. So I finally have a venue that we use, and it's in a double tree. And so I'm like, your green room, told his manager, your green room's your hotel room. You come down, boom, boom, boom. And I was very intimidated because Todd's a legend, a pro, and he's got his ways. And it was one of the best shows I've ever seen. I even messed up on his intro. I said he's the guy that runs the Todd Barry podcast. So he just pooped on me for about 2 minutes in a fun way, just, making fun of me. And then next thing you know, we went out to eat after the show, and it's like, whoo. And he's great. He's a comedy pro, and just watching him work, that crowd work, even though it wasn't a crowd work show, just watching him interact with people is kind of, that's when you become a student and learn quick,
Indeed, that's pretty good stuff. And I love seeing Kyle Kinane on stage and on YouTube and stuff like that. I've never seen him live, but he looks pretty awesome. What was that like to work with him?
That was and that was the second year. That was we were 1 year into doing it, booking shows. We booked that show. It was him and Dave Ross, who's an amazing comedian, and we had some NOLA comedians come down from New Orleans. That show sold out. I mean, we put so many people. And so when his Loose in Chicago special came out, my phone blew up the night it streamed, because he put there was something that happened at our show. This guy was wearing a shirt that said, and I'll be PG, but it said I heart, and it had a little word on it, and that made it into his special. Like, he has a whole bit. And so we had Kyle Kinane, and we're in history from our show is on his special that, what inspired that bit. So it's great. And we got him, we were supposed to have him, was it May, I think, then it got postponed. So now we got him back in April. So as long as the virus doesn't, kick up again, we'll have him back in April for the second time.
Awesome. Yeah, Dave Ross is a pretty dope dude. He was on tour here with Chris Charpentier.
Yeah, I have a shirt from that tour. I almost wore it, but I couldn't find it. But I have, both of them were just wonderful people.
Indeed. I'll have to send you their interviews, because I got to interview them while they were in Jacksonville, and so
nice.
What they had to say. So
yeah, I love Dave. I love his podcast. Everything. So that's very few people in this world. I like them as comic and a person on and off stage, and he fits that bill.
Absolutely. They're pretty awesome. I love seeing, when I saw them, they just blew me away. They were great stuff.
Oh yeah.
Most definitely. And Brian Posehn is my other favorite because he loves metal music too. And what was it like working with Brian Posehn?
That was crazy, because we booked him for this venue, and we were it was an outdoor venue where we do our other shows. And so we were 200 is our sellout. And we sold out in less than 22 hours. I thought we were hacked or something. So we added a second show. And then a day before the show was going to take place, the venue got closed down due to some ordinances. And so I had less than 24 hours to move him to another show, move him to another venue. At the same time, my dad was dying, so that was weird, and we had this weird relationship. So got all that moved. We were able to put in more people, so we had over 500 people for 2 shows, and it was amazing. And I got to nerd out, like talk. There's a band from Louisiana called Acid Bath, and he knows who they are, and I'm like, oh, so we went to eat after, and it was like, yeah, it was great. He's a really good dude, really funny.
Most definitely. He was here in Orlando a couple times, I and missed him, but hopefully one day I get to see him live and in person.
Oh man, yeah, he's really good, and he's so big and intimidating, but he's a really nice guy.
Awesome, good stuff. And you mentioned that you went to Whataburger with Emo Phillips like early in the morning. What was working with him like?
So he's a legend. Okay, like I remember as a kid watching Emo Phillips, and if you in UHF with Weird Al, I mean, it's Emo Phillips. He's just a character. So I booked him, and probably a couple of days after I booked him, I get a phone call. Like I said, like Los Angeles or whatever, and I was like, it was probably a telemarketer. And I hear, and I don't want to, make fun of his voice, but it's a impersonation. I hear, may I speak to Jason Leonard? And I was like, this is the worst telemarketer ever. And I was like, such a jerk. I was like, this is him. And he says, this is Emo Phillips. And it was like, my world stopped. And I was like, this is Emo Phillips. And then we talked, and then he came down with his wife a couple days before the show, and they did Cajun swamp tours and, and Cajun jams. And we had our show, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. He's so good. And so after that, me and him and another comic, we go eat at Whataburger, which is, if you imagine walking to a Whataburger and Emo Phillips at a Whataburger, it just doesn't make sense. And then the next day I got to, spend a couple hours in the car, drove to New Orleans, went to that show. And that's where it kind of really hit home. Like, this is someone I watched as a kid, I was a fan of, and now he's doing my show, and we're eating French fries together. And, so that was pretty one of my most special shows I've ever had. So.
Most definitely. That's a pretty cool story, how everything came back full circle.
Yeah.
Indeed. And what was it like working with Joe DeRosa?
Joe's great, man. He had hit me up and says, hey, I hear, and that's how I like kind of show validity to my shows, is when someone hits me up, not them hitting them. Hey, I heard you got great shows, boom. So I've had Joe 2 or 3 times already. He was supposed to come back in April, and then with everything, all the shutdown. But Joe's great, really solid dude. We've had great shows with him. Love him. Yeah.
Awesome, good stuff. And Shane Mouse went on tour here in Jacksonville, but I missed it. But it was a couple of my buddies were on the show with him. What was it like working with him?
Yeah, so I did a festival in Knoxville, Tennessee with Shane, and we met briefly. And then he's another person that hit me up and says, hey, do we know each other? And then I was like, I know who you are. You should know who I am. And then, we set it up. He came down. He spent a couple nights at my house. We went kayaking together. And then I just didn't know how Lafayette was going to respond to him. And then we did a show, and we like tripled what I thought we would sell in tickets, because he was so big, because he was doing his psychedelic show at that time. So he had all these fans who were big into like psychedelics and his comedy and everything. And yeah, we had an amazing show. And I've run into him in festivals in New Orleans and everything. Great dude. Another one that we were working on a show to come here that got canceled with everything. Because right now he's doing one where he interviews scientists, and he tries to make it local. So he brings people in from that's local in the scene, local scientists and professors and stuff. Really great dude. Yeah.
Most definitely. That's kind of like what I'm doing with the comics, just doing with all the locals and all that good stuff. You got to give us a voice,
Yeah, get some buy-in. It's like, hey, we got this big comedian coming in, but also we're gonna have, your physics professor is going to be on the show, and they do a talk panel and things like that.
Awesome, good stuff. And you also worked with Brooks Wheeland. What was that like?
That was really cool. That was like a special show we had set up at this venue that was like way too big, but we made it work. And it was just through someone else. Him and another comedian came in. It was just great. I mean, it was like the year after Saturday Night Live, so people knew who he was, and so that that helped. And great show. Yeah.
Awesome, good stuff. SNL's been getting pretty good lately, so
yeah.
Awesome stuff. And so, what was it like working with Baron Vaughn?
Dude, okay. I still say this today. My top 5 shows I've had here in Lafayette, he's in that top 5. I had saw him a few weeks before that. I did Hell Yes Fest in New Orleans, which used to be a comedy festival. That was real running and respected. But that his show over there was so good, and I got him here. He was doing it was called the Saturdays, where he would just go off for like one Saturday because he was still working on the Netflix show, I believe. And that show, I had 2 really good friends, Isaac and Leon. They came in from New Orleans. They brought him in from New Orleans. And when I tell you, it's one of the best shows I have ever seen. He's so good. He's such a performer. From some of my favorite tags, like when he says he looks like the principal at a breakdance high school, and and then why he can't smoke weed, and because he's allergic, and like the whole Benadryl joke. I mean, he's phenomenal and great dude. That was the first show one of the first shows where I didn't partner with like the venue on, so all the financial responsibility was on me, and I lost like $800 on that show because we had less than what we needed. I mean, it was just crazy. Plus advertising. I was trying to blow it out the water, and it just didn't work. And then like the next morning, he shot me a friend request on Facebook, and I was like, oh, that's okay. I'll be friends with Baron Vaughn. That's fine. And yeah, he's great, and he's someone I would love to get back and have here.
Most definitely. I love it when like a festival comes to town, like a comedy festival comes to town, and like some of the headliners get to go to like nearby city and perform.
Yeah.
That's what happened with like the Orlando Indie Comedy Festival, and like Nathan Lund was performing there from Colorado, and then he made his trip to Daytona, where I that's my homeroom, and I got to see him perform live, and that's where I'm originally from, is Colorado. So it was great to see like a fellow Colorado comic in the area. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. I love festival, man. If I could just do comedy festival just because you get to meet not even like talk about the headliners, just so many comedians, and like the people I've met. The very first one I ever did in Knoxville, like some of those people were some of my favorite, people I've ever done shows with. So it's that's my favorite thing, is connecting them. And then I was gonna have one this year. We're finally gonna do one, because this is probably year 5. Yeah, this is my 5th year of like doing shows, big shows. So I was like, all right, we're going to do one and set it up right. And nope. So wait until next year, I guess.
Indeed. And darn that COVID, I tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of my favorite comics, because of the way like he talks, because like I talk like he kind of talks, or like vice versa, because like we're more chill on stage and storytelling like, and he was known for Yelled At by a Clown, which is like one of my favorite records, is Nate Bargatze. And what was that like working with Nate Bargatze?
So he was, at the time, he was still like the comedian's comedian. Like if you like really were into comedy, you love good comedians, you had to be a fan of Nate Bargatze, because he's just been amazing. So we got him I think it was the week after his second Tonight Show appearance, and yeah, he came in, and man, it was such a good show. My good friend Maggie, she had just started comedy, and so we tweeted at him, and he's like, yeah, can you put her on the show? And it was just a whirlwind, but he stayed, and we had so many like local comics from, even Baton Rouge come in, and he stayed outside with us the whole time and talked, and just, and he answered questions. He's such a good dude. And he's someone that has improved and should become a huge star, because I mean, he's also clean, so he's family friendly, and he's just got a delivery. I think the best article I ever saw is Nate Bargatze is so good, we don't know why his jokes work, and it's because it's his delivery. It's so unique to him,
Most definitely. I love comics like that that can just like kick it with like other comics and and
Yeah.
just like spit game. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, I look at it when I play music. Like if I'll go to see a show and you get to hang out with the band or the bass player or whoever for a bit and just talk, and it's like you want to know some inside secrets or you just want to ask some questions. It means the world. And, a lot of comedians they understand that, and it's meet and greets. You're meeting like the fans and everyone else, but when you they're like, yeah, who are your local comics, or we'll go out to eat after the show, and you're like, oh, a couple people come. Man, that's the best thing in the world. Just sitting at a diner, sharing French fries, drinking shakes with Judah Freelander, and it's like, wait, this guy's on TV now. He's in my diner eating cheap food, and it's amazing.
Indeed, and I might butcher the next name because it's unfamiliar to me, but in time it'll be familiar to me. But what was it like working with Sashir Zamata?
Yeah, you got it. Sashir, yeah. So she was. I think she had just finished maybe with Saturday Night Live. But and that was a show that had got rescheduled. I was supposed to have her and I forget who else, but it was like they always got changed up. So we finally got the show, and she was the nicest person in the world. She was great. We had a great show. That was just one of those where it's just like, all right, someone's come and do a run, and and then she's really gotten bigger since then. After Saturday Night Live, which sometimes is hard to do, but she's in that that sitcom that was on Comedy Central with Roy Scovel. She's been on many things. She's great. So really nice person too, and she's someone who hung out and just chatted to the end.
Most definitely. Roy Scovel's pretty dope with his Netflix comedy, his special. Where
so I was supposed to have him this year, and finally got a chance to book him. And I'm not gonna tell you what ruined it, but it ruined it. Yeah, I would say top 3 comedians, my favorite comedians right now, and he's like one of the ones that I've never got here. Dave Attell, Roy Scovel. Yeah, so
most definitely, indeed. And up next was Mike Lawrence. What was it like working with Mike Lawrence?
He is so good. I am such a fan of his. I love people who embrace their nerdom, and he's from comic books to wrestling or whatever. So he was like my second or third book show, and I had been a fan of his since so when I started comedy, probably like right before, just starting to see his name. And he came down. We went eat pizza with one of the other opening comics, and then the show, something like magical happened during the show. There was this, and I'm so nervous because these are my new shows, but there was this elderly couple in the front. I would say like not elderly, let's say in their 60s, and a man and his wife. And so the show's going great, boom, and Mike's doing his thing. And during the show, you can see the man writing, and it was weird. And during Mike's set, the old man stands up and hands him a piece of paper. And I'm like, oh my God, we have to kick this old man out. What's going on? And then he starts talking, and the whole crowd just shuts up and listens. And the man said that he was recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and his wife, he wants to do something nice for his wife, and they're having such a good time at the show. So he wrote Mike, I gave him a note, and like I drew a picture and like a thank you in the middle of his thing, and of course when he has Alzheimer's, and Mike was just like, the whole crowd was like in tears, and so that Mike was like, and then the sad comedian grew a heart or something like that, it was so beautiful, it was so magical. That was one of my most memorable shows, just for something weird happening. I thought it was gonna be bad. And then I've got to run into Mike a few times. I went to his Comedy Central half-hour taping in New Orleans, so that was kind of cool to see that and run into him again.
Man, that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
awesome. And my grandfather, before he passed away, had Alzheimer's towards the end, and so it tugged on my heartstrings for sure.
Yeah, and that was just, I mean, I've never seen a whole crowd like just kind of like, oh, everyone's just teared up, but yeah.
Indeed. And what was it like working with Dan St. Germain? Well, that's how you say it.
I love Dan St. Germain. We just had him actually last year, had him again here, and I ended up going on the road doing some shows with him in Mississippi and Baton Rouge, and he's fun dude. Just the very first show we had here was like amazing. He's just a great dude on and off stage.
Indeed. And Ben Kronberg?
Ben Kronberg is a weirdo, and I love him for that. He was the second person I ever booked. I was a fan of his when he was on Last Comic Standing. I don't know if like Roseanne had like complained about him because his joke, and it was just one of those, and that's probably all stage. But he is a weirdo, and I love him for it. He plays music, during his comedy. He has pre-recorded things. Great dude. He even agreed. I was doing a little series. I was kind of making fun of comedians in cars getting coffee, and it was called comedians in a car eating shit. And so it was kind of like a pun on like doing bad on stage, but we would just go around and eat stuff. And so it was we call comedians in a car eating snowballs, because we have like a snowball stand that stays open all year. And so the very first episode, it was me and him, and it's just us talking comedy, eating snowballs in a car. But I never aired that. But yeah, he's a great dude.
Man, that's pretty awesome.
I don't even know if I have that footage anymore. It was kind of like I had a GoPro, I borrowed one, I had my iPhone. It was just whatever. I didn't have the budget, so sorry.
For sure. And what was it like working with Mike Kaplan?
That dude, he has such a amazing delivery in his style, and he's so quick. And you cannot not pay attention to his show. You have to be all in, or you're just gonna get lost. We had him here. It was the very first time my wife ever saw me do stand up. And it was her second time seeing Mike Kaplan. So go figure that, like, because we saw him before I even was doing comedy in New Orleans. And he's a great dude. And anytime he puts on an album, and he's an awesome person to follow on social media too. So
cool. And this guy's related to one of my favorite comedians, and he was in Tommy Boy, I believe, made like appearance. And Chris Farley is like one of my favorite comedians, and with Tommy Boy and SNL and all that stuff. So you worked with Kevin Farley, his brother. It was Chris Farley. What was it like working with Kevin Farley?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect, and we ended up having a crazy show. Like, I think that my current like video submission that I send out to festivals or whatever, it's from that show, because it was so good. I mean, we were packed. We were 250 people, and it was just it's a great show. And it's like, you have to get, once you get past that, this is Kevin Farley, the guy from the boy band show, and all the movies, and he's Chris Farley's brother too, but it was nice dude, great dude, and crazy awesome show, real fun.
Most definitely. Indeed. And in the end of the whole list that you had And More. So who else were you that you got to perform with that were part of the And More collection?
And there's so many. Recently, right before everything shut down, we had in December, I had Joe List and Sarah Tolomash, who I love. Both of them are great. And Sarah's from Houston, so she's kind of got some friends here. So that was kind of cool to get her here. Joe List is one of my favorite comedians, and as is Mark Norman. So I had Mark Norman twice. We had him in January, and this was 2 days before he recorded his new special, Out to Lunch. So that show, we sold that one out 300 plus. I mean, we could have done 2 shows. It was crazy. So those are my last ones that are just like, just amazing. And it's like, I'm bringing in my favorite comedians, and it's where they're going to do well. And it's, it's going to work for everyone. But, Joe List, Mark Norman, I'm a nerd on their podcast, I want to, a big fan. So when you get these people that not only watch stand up, and Mark Norman has ties here to New Orleans, and and so we got him coming back in February, and I'm gonna go to Texas with him, do a festival. So it's just those are probably like my favorites that I've had. But there's so many, from your big known comedians to just your other levels. There's so many amazing comedians that come through here, and as long as they people keep hitting me up and wanting to come back, it's like let's do it.
Most definitely, indeed. Yeah, I saw Joe List here at a bar in downtown Orlando, and he has good stuff. I'm glad he got to stop by. He was supposed to do. He had a show the next day in Tampa, and it's pretty neat to see him pop by in Orlando to do a show. So that's neat.
Yeah, and he's so good. He's so nice. And then little things like he's a Pearl Jam nerd. I'm a Pearl Jam nerd, and like we started nerding out. I was like, and his wife's there. I'm like, I'm sorry, just give us 5 minutes. She's like, I'm used to this. I'm like, okay, now I know what my wife feels like. When I start nerding out about something, just stand by. I'll wait. So yeah, little things like that are just make it the shows and the connections even better.
Indeed. What is your favorite memory of Pearl Jam?
What's that?
What's your favorite memory of Pearl Jam, or your favorite story to share?
Man, that goes deep. I've been to many shows. I've seen them in California and Texas and Louisiana. I would say like it's still related to Pearl Jam, but like I got to meet Stone Gossard, one of the guitar players and the bass player, and like 2 of the drummers now, which is weird. But like meeting Stone Gossard at one of his bands, he has a band called Brad, in Houston, was probably the biggest thing because I mean he's the reason I play guitar. He's the reason I played, a certain type of guitar. And so he let me nerd out, and that's probably like my biggest nerdist thing, other than just seeing the band.
Indeed. I love Pearl Jam too, and they were here on tour in Jacksonville. And I'm a concert journalist, like in my early years, back in like the early 2000s, and got to cover them in the Veterans Memorial Veterans Arena, I believe. And so before I get into these shows for free,
Oh yeah.
So I would buy a concert shirt, and then I would go in between the artist and the audience and take photos. And so Eddie Vedder saw me with a Pearl Jam shirt, and I was like the only one that had a shirt like that. And he looked at me, he smiled. I'm like, this is so awesome. That's my favorite Pearl Jam story.
Yeah, no, I haven't got to meet him. I haven't got to meet Mike McCready. But the Stone Gossard, Jeff Ament, a couple of the drummers, they've come through here with other bands, which is crazy. And even the original drummer, Dave Cruzen, who was, that's the original drummer. That's the guy on 10. He was great. Dave Aberzees, who's my favorite rock drummer of all time. And it's so yeah. I just don't get me started, dude. I'll nerd out on all that. My wife's like, okay, it's like music one day, and then in a couple years, and then it changes. Now it's comedy. So she's used to it. She just goes, it's just easier for you to set up now. But yeah, I'll nerd out on whatever. So.
Most definitely, indeed. You mentioned earlier that you were part of on the bill of the Hell Yes Fest in New Orleans from 2000.
Yeah.
From 2014 to 2017. What were those years like?
Those were cool because at that time that festival was really big, and they were bringing in some amazing headliners. So just doing those, like the first one I got to be on was just like I almost don't want to do my shows. Like I'll do my time and then let me go watch these comedians. So, you meet any festival, you meet so many amazing comedians. You get to see these, national comedians, and I got to, I've had Matt Bronger, and we had him 2 years ago. We got him coming back in April, but I got to see him open for Neil Hamburger, I don't know if you've ever had an experience seeing him, but that's a standout. Like, whoa, this is just this is a comedy I don't know, I'm not used to, and it's amazing. So, but yeah, the Hell Yes Fest, that festival kind of fell off with some people that were running it and some other things, but it was great, but it doesn't exist anymore. So,
man, that's a huge bummer. I remember trying to apply for that a couple of times, but never got through. But
yeah, it's it's one of them. That's the thing with festivals too. It's sometimes you get in, sometimes you don't, and that's all right. But I still like, all right, I'm still going to go. I'll go do satellite shows just so I can be around, have an excuse to be around there and stay the night.
Absolutely, indeed, yep. And sometimes you get in, and sometimes you don't, but you just keep on pushing.
they can't put everyone in. So, that's how it is,
Indeed, most definitely. Plus, I was like too early in my career to be thinking about festivals, anyways. But
Yeah, and everyone wants to get it and get that tape, and then you never. I would. Sometimes there's a rhyme or reason. Some people hand it this way. Just submit and whatever, or and then and a lot of people complain about festival submission prices. Sometimes you'll find some who are free, some are $5, some are $45. It's like, call it an investment if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. You're still gonna meet some comedians. Just go hang out, watch some shows.
Totally, indeed. And like before the COVID hit, I got accepted into 2 of them finally this year. And I'm like, oh man. And then COVID hit, and then they got postponed to 2021. So luckily, they're going to be around next year. So I get to, but the bad thing is like they're both in May. So I got to go to Santa Monica and Chicago coming up. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to go to Chicago. That's on my list. So many awesome comedians I've had come through. It's Chicago's a wonderful place.
Indeed, most definitely. I did 2 shows there in one night, but don't go in November though. It gets really cold.
Yeah. And don't come here in let's say May through August either, because it's the opposite. It's stupid hot.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
I'll be sure to go during the winter.
Yeah. Really nice. So yeah.
Indeed. So you also performed at the Scruffy City Comedy Festival in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2015. What was that like?
That was my first one, and I was I didn't know what to do, and I was like, I got on a plane and went, and I was like, I'm not going to make any, you don't get paid at festivals, but it was like, I'm going because if I'm gonna, that was really when I started kind of doing, I was already doing shows, and I was like, all right, let's see, and then man, I met so many awesome comedians, and it's just for that exposure, and then you get to see a town you're not used to, and you stay with a couple comedians you never met before, and next thing you know, they're coming through your town, and it's kind of, so it's just all about networking and meeting good people.
That's what I love about those festivals, just the networking and meeting new people and setting up shows along the way and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
most definitely. And then you also performed in Houston in 2016 at the Come and Take It Comedy Takeover Fest. What was that like?
Yeah, so that's run by Andrew Youngblood. He runs the Secret Group in Houston, and that is a place to put on your map. We always laugh because if you ever watch, there's a documentary called I Am Road Comic, and it's about comedians on the road, and the famous line in there was from Kyle Kinane, and he said something about Houston, like it's not a good place. And so it's funny, in the last couple years, they really changed it, and they opened up their own venue. And so now, you can find this amazing shows in Houston. But that festival was crazy because you had, Dave Ross, Kyle Kinane, Eugene Merman, Brian Posehn. I mean, so many awesome comedians, and I'm just like, where am I? When you're a year in, and you're just watching this, going, this is great. So yeah, Houston is awesome. That festival is awesome, and it's that's one of the places that I'm glad is still surviving after all the shutdowns here.
Indeed, Andrew Youngblood's a pretty cool dude. I got to see him perform in Daytona and Jacksonville when he was in town. So I didn't know he ran that festival. That's pretty neat. That's good to know.
Yeah. Him and all the people who at the Secret Group, and Zod. I don't know if you've met Zod. He's one of my favorite people in the world too. So you got so many good people in Houston. You got so many amazing comedians. So many awesome comedians came out of there. So yeah, it's a great market to stop in.
Most definitely. I'll definitely have to give that place a shot. I've never been to Texas, believe it or not. So.
Oh man, yeah, that and Austin. Phew, in Austin. They've had some major venues close. Cap City Comedy, which is one of the biggest ones. That shut down. It's like that's brutal right now. So hopefully a lot of these places keep going, because especially like the little small places where you just do bar shows. Those go away. Where are you going next? So that's rough. But Austin, Houston, awesome places to go.
Most definitely, indeed. And I remember seeing Daniel Van Kirk perform with Andrew Youngblood at that show too. And
Yeah.
I
So
took a I'll go
go
for
ahead.
it. I took this really cool shot of Daniel on stage at the Rain Dogs, and he uses I think he used it as his promotional stuff, where he's like pointing the microphone into the crowd. So if you
Yeah.
ever see that shot, that was me that took the photo.
No, so the very first time I met and saw Van Kirk was at the Come and Take It festival, and he didn't do like a stand up set. He comes out, he does a song. I don't know if you saw him. He does the I Like Banana song, and he gets the crowd to sing along with. He came out and did that, and he had like a shirt button all the way to the top, and it was like it looked like a youth group pastor. And I was like, okay, man, I knew who he was because I used to listen to Doug Loves Movies, and he would do the Mark Wahlberg impersonation. And so when he was on the road right before his album was coming out, we had him here in town, and yeah, he's a very funny dude.
Indeed. One thing that I would always stick out from that show, his performance, is when he notices his family and friends in the crowd.
Yeah,
I won't ruin it for everyone out there, but when he does that, it's so awesome.
yeah, that was the first time I saw him do that, and that was just that was a great moment because he's like when I do this, I need this music playing and like synced it up, and yeah, it was funny.
Indeed, most definitely. And we also performed in Birmingham, Alabama, in 2017 at the Birmingham Comedy Festival. What was that like?
Yeah, so Chris Ivy runs some amazing shows in Birmingham. He does I've gone up there a couple years in a row to do a brewery show he has. But that Birmingham Comedy Festival, they use a bunch of little bars, and then this one cool bigger venue. But man, I got to see Laurie Kilmartin, Jackie Cation, just watching them in this little place, just do their shows was amazing. So Birmingham is really cool for comedy. Definitely a place to put on the radar. Birmingham, Huntsville, definitely some cool places in Alabama.
Very cool, indeed. And our mutual pal JT Haberstad puts together this one, the Altercation Comedy Festival in Austin, Texas. And you performed in 2017 and 2019. And what were those years like?
So the 17 was amazing, and I like comedy festivals also because if I could take my wife for a weekend and get put the kids at grandma's, that's great, and we had the greatest time. So I got to meet some new people, but also like see some people I haven't seen in forever, like Carmen Morales, who I met in Knoxville, and then Ron Babcock, who I had. So like that was a great year just to be on shows. And you're just hoping the whole time, don't be the one that sucks. And then you have a good show and you're like, oh, this is great. Then I was supposed to do it last year. So I actually have to fix that. So I didn't get to do it last year because like 3 days before I was going, I got asked to open for Jim Brewer at the Hard Rock Casino in Biloxi. And he gave me the blessing to go. And I'm like, I'm sorry. He said, I'm going to take your spot. So he did my spot. And I was like, that's fine. So, and then I was supposed to do it again this year. And then they postponed it yet again because of the COVID. So, but JT's great. I've had him here so many times. He's a wonderful human being, and his festival it's great. And I hope that venue he works with, I hope that survives too.
Most definitely, I hope so too. And you mentioned Carmen Morales, and she's such a sweetheart. And yeah. I got to perform on a show in Orlando with her because she's originally from Orlando.
Yeah, we got a picture from that Knoxville Scruffy City Festival we did where we were walking the train tracks. There's a bunch of us, and she took these pictures, and we looked like a I don't know, like a Creed cover band. It was like we had every mixture. We had male, female, black, white. We're all in these jackets because it's freezing cold, and we're all in these poses. It was so funny. I saw that picture the other day. I used to have this big old beard, so it was like us walking on train tracks. It was great.
Indeed, most definitely. And you also performed at the Tower City Comedy Festival in Paris, Texas in 2019. What was that like?
Yeah, so that's Daryl Fillsberg runs that festival, and I was supposed to do it last year, and then I had some schedule change, but I'm doing it this February, and Mark Norman's going to be one of the headliners. Paris is a very small town. I described the town like they're downtown. If you ever watched Gremlins, the first Gremlins, That's what it reminds me of. It's like an old school town, and like the hospitality room was this bank that was there from I don't know how long, but like maybe 100 years, something like that. And just awesome bank, very historical. And we did a show in a Harley Davidson motorcycle shop, and then you do one at this his little their Tower City venue they have. It's a fun little place, and they pull from Dallas and the other places. I've never been to real Paris, and I went to Paris, Texas, and they're like, all right, it's cool. And they have a little Eiffel Tower, so it's just kind of fun,
Indeed, it's pretty neat that the U.S. has 2 Eiffel Towers because there's one in Vegas too.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, so you're the founder of Lafayette Comedy, and you host weekly and monthly open mics and book shows, and what got you into all that?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, was just meeting someone, and like I never knew you can just do comedy, and the only comedians I ever saw was like going to see like big name people, in New Orleans or Houston, and I think it was like I got to see Mitch Hedberg like not too long before he died, and he was one of my. This is when Napster was going, and everyone was downloading his first album, and it was so I really got into listening to comedy because I would go play music, and then on the way home, you're driving an hour or 2 hours. It's like the last thing you want to do is listen to music, so I would listen to comedy. So Mitch Hedberg, David Tell, Mitch Hedberg, David Tell. That's all I would listen to, and then new people, but Mitch Hedberg, David Tell. Just over and over again. But since I was a kid, I remember coming home from school and just watching stand-up comedy anytime I could, late at night, MTV Comedy Hour, anything I could find, I would watch it. I just never knew you could do comedy. And I think my years of playing music and running bands, numerous bands, and setting up shows, that prepared me for this. And you just have to learn, like, okay, what are the norms in comedy, which is a little different. But once you get everything set, it's about, have your stuff in order. Make sure you're telling people you're paying them what you're going to pay them. Make sure everything's spelled out, advertise, make it professional, all those things. So just getting into comedy was just meeting someone and going, I didn't know New Orleans had comedy. I didn't know anywhere because I was so focused on music. And then I was just kind of like, I was kind of burnt out in music, and this kind of filled the void, took over. And then, here I am now, it's just trying to survive this year, but, just keeping shows going. So.
Most definitely. Indeed. And it's pretty neat that you built the scene, helped build the scene out in Lafayette.
Yeah. Because it was dead for there was nothing here when I decided to get into it. So it was a perfect time.
Most definitely. And you're a comedy writer for The Laugh Button, and you wrote you interviewed Ari Shaffir for with The Double Negative and Sean Patton on the Road. And what was it like? Or are you still with The Laugh Button? And how did you get to working with The Laugh Button?
Yeah, I haven't done any of that in a while. Just because I was just kind of like freelance here and there. I'm trying to remember. I think because I was doing my local comedy column for a newspaper. They would pay me $20 an article, and I was like, wait, I'm only promoting my shows. And then there was some other there's another little group. Joey Thibodeau runs some shows, and it's like, that's all I'm promoting. So essentially, I'm getting paid to promote my shows. And I was like, well, this is just stupid. So we started having fun with it and interviewing comedians and doing things. And then I think I was just reading an article on The Laugh Button, which is a great comedy source. And I just, like, hey, is there any room for any freelance writers? And then I think the first one was like, all right, pitch us something. So, or were you interested in? I was like, yeah. So I think first one I did was that Ari Shaffir, and he had those two specials come out, and that was great. And he got to he explained what happened with his show and everything. So you kind of learn a bunch of stuff. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then they're like, I turned that in. They're like, pitch us something else. So I had Sean Patton coming through, and he's one of my favorite comedians. And I said, what about? So I when I book comedians, one of the things is I book them for my show, and I say I can help you from Texas to wherever. So we set up a run of shows. So I was like, well, he's doing Houston, he's doing us, he's doing New Orleans, he's doing Baton Rouge. So I was like, what about on the road with Sean Patton? And they're like, absolutely. So okay. And so it was gonna be like a review and interview. And it was also like, cool, I get to put my friends' shows in this national press, So it's like, all right, the New Orleans show hosted by so and so, boom, boom, boom. And then it just turned into and my show. So I went to New Orleans and then went to Houston to the Secret Group, and then my show, and then it had a show in Baton Rouge. And so after the show here, me and Sean, talked for over an hour, and it was just, everything with the stuff that's in there, a lot was cut out because it was just so much we talked about. But it's really cool just to, dive deep, and you get some secrets, and you get some, some stuff you didn't know, and it's great. And then other than that, I would do like special reviews. I reviewed Jim Gaffigan's, Dimitri Martin, a few other ones. So I love doing that. I just have it with my day job. I just have it, try to do more. And I haven't even thought about anything this year with all the COVID. So it's just like, all right, let's step away.
Dang, man, you got paid quite well for an article. Like when I was a concert journalist out in LA, I got paid $80 a year. And I was going to like so many concerts, but they were all free concerts. That paid off.
I wish I had a camera. I would go to all the shows. Excuse me, just step in there and thank you. I'm good.
Indeed. When you spoke of like On the Road to Sean Patton, it reminded me of the movie Almost Famous, but instead of musicians, you got to go on tour with a cool comic. So.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's just and he was running the hour, which it hasn't been released in its entirety. Some of the stuff was on Scuttlebutt, his latest album, but the hour he was running was called Bedwetter. And man, it was one of the most powerful shows I've seen because it gets really deep. And if you're a fan of Sean Patton and the way he delivers things, it's amazing. So I got to see that 4 nights in a row, and the little changes between each one, and it was one of my favorite things I've ever got to see. And because watching someone do a show and then seeing it on the specials later, but watching 4 nights in a row, an hour, just watching this, how intense it was pretty special. And actually we got him coming like last minute, but he's coming back not this Friday, next Friday. He's going to pop in, just do a show here in town because he's going to be in New Orleans. So this would be my 4th time having him, which is, I'm over the moon with it. 4th time having one of my favorite comedians, so wow. He's in that top 5. So, and I'm not ashamed to say that.
Indeed, most definitely. And speaking of your journalism days, you wrote the comedy column for the Daily Advertiser in times of I'm not sure if I can pronounce this right. Acadiana.
Okay, yeah, good, yeah.
Oh, cool. Indeed, what were those days like?
Well, and those just kind of ended this year because of like some restructure and stuff, and then like really I didn't have anything to write on, so I wasn't gonna write about Zoom open mics or anything. So it was just like I just kind of let it fall to the wayside. They change editors, but I don't know if it picks back up, it picks back up. But that was just a way to, it was cool. It's a way to promote shows, and I get to control what's out there, and it's someone who's running the shows writing weekly. It was the most expensive blog I can ever have that I didn't have to pay for, and then the next thing you see your picture in the paper, and then you see the comedian's name in the paper, and then people start, like, oh, I didn't know. I mean, to this day, I've been doing these big shows since 2015, February. And to this day, people go, oh, I didn't know we had stand up in town. I'm like, well, there you go. Yeah, that's always the struggle. I think that's everywhere a struggle. So
most definitely. So I want to be respectful of your time, and I know we're almost at the 1 hour mark, and like 5-6 more minutes to go. But at this point, did you? I'm hoping to. How much time do you have available left to that we can talk?
Oh, dude, I have nothing going on today.
Oh, for sure. Indeed. So I'll ask you the questions that I was hoping to ask you while I was going to go on tour, if we were to meet up. But so we'll dive into that. So we spoke briefly on this one earlier in the interview. But So we'll come back to it. So what inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
One, being a big fan of it. Two, always having a dumb, goofy sense of humor, and thinking about like what made me laugh as a kid, as early as I can remember, to what made me laugh. And then I think probably a year before I tried it, maybe 2 years, my band was playing a venue in Baton Rouge, and and right before the show, they're like, "Oh yeah, y'all going on after comedy?" I'm like, "What?" And not to sound like every jerk, like you're watching a show and going, "I could do this." Like, it's like, that guy's not funny. And then I was like, okay, well, how am I going to act on this? And I never even thought about like, oh, maybe I should go back to Baton Rouge, try it out. But then it just, when the time came up, and then it was so funny when I started meeting people in Baton Rouge, like, oh, I know you, I saw you perform this show, I know you, so it was kind of a nice full circle of seeing these people and going, oh wait, these people are good, because this is not easy. So
Most definitely. And what was the feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
what was it, the show like, or
what was the feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
I was so nervous. I typed out my entire set word for word. It was 2 columns, front and back. And I was just, and then like someone I worked with was there. They were, I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I was doing CrossFit that summer. I was like, cool, let's try CrossFit. So like 7 people from the CrossFit place were there. I don't know why. It was just a perfect storm. And and then the bar, they knew me from playing music, so they were interested. And I was just like, all right, here we go. And I have it on video because my coworker filmed it. No one will ever see this thing. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna do my first joke, which is it was pretty much a Mitch Hedberg ripoff. But I'm like, if this joke works, I'm gonna keep doing it. And then I just had fun. And then I got asked to go back the next week, and it wasn't open mic. They just wanted me to do time on the show, and I did like a whole another like 7-8 minutes of just new stuff. And then I was just hooked. And then I was like, I get it. I understand it. I understand why people get up there and just essentially, give the audience a knife and say, you're either going to kill me or don't, and that's the feeling. And I always say when it works, it's the greatest feeling in the world. It feels so good. But when it doesn't work, I just want to crawl in a hole. I want to get plastic surgery so no one sees me again. I want to move, but that's how it is, And so,
Indeed, most definitely. Oh man, I have my very first on tape too, and it makes me cringe just watching it. But I was so nervous that I had to change into my superhero alter ego and perform. It was just, it's on YouTube, but it's hidden in one of my interviews, so they'll have to go find it somewhere.
I have my first time on video and my second time on audio, and that's one thing. I don't record my stuff, like, and I always go, oh man, I should have, but for some reason I had those 2 recorded, and every now and then I'll listen to it again and go, oh, it's so horrible. But there's still premises there that's still in jokes that I use today, because you think about it for a bit, and then it sticks with you.
Same, for sure. And you mentioned a couple of your favorite Richard comedy specials earlier, like with the Richard Pryor when you were 5 and watching that and stuff. And what are your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
Oh man! All right, Dave Attell, Skinks for the Memories, hands down. I mean that's that one. The first 2 Hedberg's albums. Those are great. Lately, I think I've been Rory Scovel, Try Stand Up. That's easily one of my favorite specials. The last 2 Eddie Pepitone specials it's some of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And so those right there are just ones that stand out. And then I love, every now and then each album has its own little, little moments. There's so much comedy right, you get your hands on, but it's ones that really stand out. But those right there are my favorites. And then other ones, I just listened to Kyle Ayers' new special, which is great. I had him, and he does so much, cuckoo stuff. The latest Dave Ross album was so good. Yeah, there's so many people. I just listened to Maria Bamford album, and then her audiobook. But then it's not so much like the specials and the albums, but I just remember like could be like Comedy Central or HBO performances or just sets on TV. Like Wendy Liebman is probably one of my favorite joke writers of all time, and she's been around for a while. So, comedians like that really, really stand out. So certain bits that I use, like in day-to-day language, or it's like a personal joke with me and my wife or whatever. Other than that, I would say Norm Macdonald, anything he does, and Brian Regan's live is probably, that's probably they're all tied for number one, but his is up there. Attell, Hedberg, Brian Regan live, those are probably my top ones that I can listen to at any time and be happy.
Most definitely. And some of those folks are on TV and film, and I want to know what your favorite sitcoms, sketch shows, and comedy films are.
Cool. Let's start with film. So, like, going back to when I was a kid, again, my parents, some people call them bad, but I would say they just were very liberal and let me do whatever. And, I'm kind of like that with my kids a little bit. But, man, when I was young, Airplane, Porky's, Cheech and Chong, Stir Crazy with Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, all those movies right there, yeah, hands down shaped a lot of early mistakes, I guess, and inappropriateness. Beavis and Butthead, hands down, was that had the major impacts on me. As far as today, like Bob's Burgers, that's something my whole family watches. I have two daughters, 14 and almost 8, and we watch that as a family. That just stays on. So, I mean, humor like that, those things like, really play in. As far as movies, other movies, Spaceballs, things like that type of humor.
Most definitely. Indeed. And so talk about sitcoms and films, and how about sketch shows?
The State was, and Kids in the Hall and the State were the big ones. Of course, Saturday Night Live is always going to be there, but the State was really special. They had some really goofy stuff that, like the pudding sketch and the chicken sandwich sketch. It just, some stuff just never leaves in our brain. Those are the ones.
Most definitely. And let's see, if you can go on tour with any comedian, locally and internationally known, which two comics would you like to go on tour with?
You said locally and internationally. Like locally, like someone from my town or state?
Yep.
Locally, like I'm telling, like our region, my buddy Isaac, we go on lots of road shows and little runs together. We get along great, and he's fun to go with. So that's always my favorite touring partner. As far as like today, I'm gonna stick with just living. I would just love to watch David Tell work every night, just every night. Just he's someone I never get tired of. I would love to just, yeah. That would be him.
Indeed. And if you can get roasted by 5 comedians, top 5 past and present, which 5 comedians would you like to get roasted by?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Roasted by Anthony Jeselnik. And I have to throw him into like some of my favorite specials. I think he's great. Oh yeah, that would be honor. Geez. Attell would be great because he's pretty brutal. Sarah Silverman, she's always been someone who's done amazing stuff, and she's pretty brutal. She seems like she can hurt me with her words, and I would be very appreciative. I need 2 more. Man, I would just pick someone local for my scene that's just always talking trash on me, which is great, in a good way. Buddy of mine, Josh Watts, he's always great to talk trash on. And uh, I can't even think of. I'll go with Jeff Ross just because he's the roast master. He seemed like he can make it work. So.
Indeed, most definitely. And let's see here. Where do you see your comedy career in the next 5 years?
I don't know. Look, I got a day job. I've been in my day job for 18 years. I approached this like I did music. I wasn't in it to become famous or whatever. If it's something happens and I get exposure, great. But right now, it's just about me running great shows, bringing in people I like, both known and unknown, and just keeping a scene going that's, respectable and going. So in 5 years, if I'm still doing this, a little part of me would love to have a venue, whether it's just, devoted. I don't think a devoted comedy club could survive in Lafayette, much less Louisiana, but maybe a multi-use, multi-arts venue, something like that would be great. Some type of establishment that I can do any night of the week I want, do whatever I wanted. That would probably be my big goal.
Indeed. And you've been a comedy journalist with the publications. And what other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into, like improv, sketch, comedy writing, directing, acting, etc.?
I've never done sketch and I've never done improv. I've been scared of improv, but some of my most favorite things I've ever done have been like panel shows or just other little shows where improv drives it. So I'm a little scared. I would like to try it. But I don't want to go through the classes, that type of deal, but I think improv has lost its little stigma it used to have. I would say improv would be great. And then I've never tried writing like sketch or anything. So I think that would be fun to do. I would love to write a sketch and see how that went. I never think on that level just because I'm not wired for that yet, I guess.
Indeed. And what was your favorite joke a comic has ever written?
Oh, that's so many. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say the one that's off the spot that sticks out the most was from an Emo Phillips show when he was here. And he was on stage and someone was in the front row and he had his cell phone on the table. And he said, "Can I see your cell phone?" And he picks up the guy's cell phone and he holds it. And with Emo Phillips' voice, he says, "A cell phone and a dog's nipples are a lot alike. You don't have to yell into them to make them work." I don't know why. That kills me. That still kills me to this day, because if you look at it as a joke, it doesn't make any sense, but it makes perfect sense. If that makes sense, it's probably one of my favorite, like, on the spot jokes I've ever heard. And yeah, I'll go with that one.
Indeed. And what experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
After my set's over?
Mm-hmm.
Just fun. Like, it's not serious. I'm not political. I don't do dirty stuff anymore. I just like, whatever, like, to relate. And it's always good after a show when someone's, comes up to you and they, they're talking about one of your jokes, or they reuse them, later on, or something just, just builds. That's my favorite. If people can remember it and they'll use it. And if it becomes part of like something that happens like almost daily, like the video you got linked as that bit, the "Man, It's a Hot One" bit, that was just a stupid thing. We were recording this album. I was recording it. And I was also on the show, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so it was some stupid little impression that I did. And it was the first time I've ever done it in that form that night. And it's so stupid. Like, I've made bumper stickers from it. I've sold like 500 stickers from that, and like towels and shirts and mug. It's so stupid, but like, it becomes, people who don't even like see me all the time do comedy, they use that expression, and it's kind of like, all right, that's the true funny thing, when people start using your bits and daily conversations or references or as their own punchline. Like, okay, that works. That, at the end of the day, I'm happy with that.
That is a wonderful feeling for sure. And
Yeah.
speaking of that YouTube bit, you can see it scrolling on the bottom there, and also in the description box below. And you can follow Jason on social media, on Instagram and Twitter. That's scrolling on the bottom. And if you'd like to donate to Jason and his movement, his Venmo is on the bottom as well. And
Yeah, we've been shut. Lafayette Comedy is me, so like it's just running. So it's like advertisements and expenses of a website and taxes. You know how it is. It's a business, really. What it is, and we've been shut since March, like everyone. And my co-host Maggie Shipley, who co-hosts the mic with me, and she's on almost all my shows because she's amazing. It's like just that little weekly extra money, it's like, oh, this hurts, so it's like, all right, just keeping your head above water, and it's that's what it is. So if I sell koozies and shirts, it's like, cool, that goes back into it, little things.
Indeed. And speaking of your co-hosts and such, and that leads us into our next segment of the show, which is like who you'd like to nominate to join the stand-up speakeasy. So there's 5 positions open, and the first will go into which host would you like to nominate to be in the speakeasy?
I am totally gonna go with my co-host Maggie Shipley. She's a wonderful human being. She's someone I hang out with off stage, and she's great to travel with, and she's really funny, and she's a good person all around. So and she's a female comedian, which is always underrepresented, and so I would go with her, but I put her over any male comedian any day. So
absolutely, indeed. And your favorite open micer?
Man, everyone's different. I'm here in town. I'm gonna go with someone who takes a lot of risk. As a guy named Coleman Wilson, and we hit it off because he's a music nerd, and he does some of the most, and I mean this in a good way, stupidest stuff, and it's one of my favorite things. I had him on a show with I forget what show I had him on, Chris Fairbanks, and so I said, hey, just stick with your true and tried material. Don't try any open stuff. Don't do any new stuff. Just do your best to knock it out. And of course, he opens up the show with something I've never heard him do before. I don't think he's ever done it before. And it was the most amazing joke I've ever heard. Like he's singing a Dave Matthews song and he ties it back to his grandma. And it killed me. It was so funny. And so he does stupid stuff like that at the mics. And so, yeah, I would go. He wins this prize this time.
Indeed. And your favorite feature in Lafayette?
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to Maggie. I mean, Maggie's, we got so many, we've got a crew that's been, rolling for a while, I'm just going to name some names. Ken Edwards, Tyler Arsenault, Joey Thibodeau, Charles Thomas Verdreen, Shelby Schoen. Those are who I lean to the most. We've got others, but like those are the ones that kind of been at it for a while. And we're such a small town and a small scene that if we have 10 people on our mic, that's pretty good. So it's very tight knit, and those are my favorites.
Yeah, I feel like on that close, small, tight-knit family, that's what Daytona Beach is like. But the cool thing is, like, everyone from Jacksonville, Orlando, and Melbourne, and they all come to Daytona and perform. So
yeah,
to have that too. So, indeed, who are your favorite headliners in Lafayette?
They're pretty much the same ones because they're all the same. We all share the same duties. I mean, like we don't. We don't have anyone famous from here. I mean, there's our comedy scene, and there's a small scene of like Cajun comedians that tell like Boudreaux and Thibodeau jokes, but ours is just like kind of the modern of what you see today in stand up. But like all those people I named, if they're not featuring, they're headlining. You know, if they're not headlining, they're doing the open mic. It's too small. You know, so it's there. We all pull whatever duty we need to, and that's why we pull a lot from Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And then there you'll find some amazing people. You know,
most definitely. And other than yourself, Jason, who's your favorite showrunner in Lafayette?
We have one other, and Joey Thibodeau runs an open mic. Him and Charles Thomas Dream co-host that, and that's just a mic. Every now and then, like a showcase will pop up, like a showrunner. Maggie's done shows. There's a few short-lived shows, you know. So I'm gonna kick it over to like Baton Rouge, which is our closest, and I would say Terrence Delane and Omar Finley. They run a great show where we had Dave Ross and Chris, where we recorded compilations and albums. Where my video comes from was at one of those shows. It's called No Show Comedy. But they get it, they understand it, and they put together a nice little, nice shows, whether they're open mics or book shows or whoever else.
Awesome. Good stuff. And thank you so much, Jason, for being on the show. Are there any final words you'd like to give to the audience watching at home in the future?
Just do what you can do so we can open up this stuff again. We're hurting. We need shows, so keep it safe. And, it sucks. We did our first show week before last, and we had 3 mics, 1 for me and 2 that we use for the other comedians with disposable mic covers. I mean, it's an open air market. It's outside. So it just, everyone wants comedy, which is great. But, if you're not wearing a mask when you go to Costco, then you're just holding everyone back. So, and support local shows. Just go to a local show. That's the best thing. You never know who you're going to see, and maybe great, maybe bad, but you're going to have fun. So
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And be sure to follow Jason on Instagram and Twitter on the bottom there, and subscribe to his YouTube channel, and donate if you can through his Venmo and all that good stuff. And so, Jason, thank you so much for being my guest on the Stand Up Speakeasy and nominating all those fine folks. And I'll be sure to message them, or if you want, when I send you the link, tag them, and so they can reach out to me. I'll be sure to put my email in the description box and have them reach out to me and all that good stuff. So
okay, awesome. Thank you for having me. This is fun. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for taking me down memory lane with you and all that good stuff. And I can't wait to meet you in person and all that good stuff too. So
absolutely, for sure.
Indeed, Jason. So thank you again, and until next time, we'll see you on the next Stand Up Speakeasy and all that good stuff. Take care, everyone.